Hello everybody, this is Nino, and in this video I will be talking about fragmentation sets, which is a method of comparing patterns which I have developed, and I am going to compare it here to vector comparisons and set comparisons. The central question of this video is how to say that one pattern is more similar to another pattern rather than to a third pattern. First, let us look into vector comparisons. If you're having here the patterns of A, B, C, D, E, F and A, B, X, D, E, Y, then you can say, by means of vector comparisons, that you are looking at both patterns position by position and looking whether the elements are the same. And so far as they are the same, you can say that the patterns are similar. That means the two vectors where more elements are the same are going to be more similar. What is the issue with this? Well, vectors are positionally ordered. That leads to a funny consequence. If you were to shift a vector by even one element, and even if you make a cycle shift so that in fact it consists out of the same sub-elements, then still this shift will cause the new vector to be regarded as totally different from the original one, because, you know, none of the positions will actually match anymore. So, if you put an F here in front of the A, then every single position will be different, and the vector comparison is going to tell you it's a completely different pattern. That is evidently not true, and in practice it might annoy you if you are looking at the usage of neural networks, because they do depend on the positions of the signals. And instinctively you might say the pattern of F, A, B, C, D, E is not totally different from A, B, C, D, E, F. It's not the same, but it's only partly different. Now what happens if you try a set comparison? There you're saying that you are leaving out the ordering at all. You don't care about the ordering of the elements in general. You're only looking at how many elements there are in common and how many there are different, but not in what way this difference is expressed. Again, I believe this approach has weaknesses, because sometimes the ordering of the pattern elements may matter quite a lot. For instance, look at these two people. Like, the one has its head normally, the other one has a head, but it has been chopped off. It's really not the same situations. So evidently patterns have a certain structure, and sets of the same elements may be still entirely different patterns otherwise. It does matter to a point how the elements are ordered. But how are we going to handle that without saying that the positions matter absolutely, and without saying that the positions do not matter at all? So what I wanted was truly degrees of similarity, being able to say that a pattern is more similar to another pattern. Here an example, I wanted to say that A, B, C, D, E is more similar to F, A, B, C, D than to F, E, A, C, B. And I got therefore the idea to look into the locality of sub-patterns. You can say that every pattern element has some sort of environment around it which should be kept up for as much as possible in order to cause a more similar evaluation. So I'm saying you're looking around groups of sub-patterns along the dimensions of the pattern, and you're saying the more such are in common between two patterns, the more similar you can call them. So if you're looking at the pattern of A, B, C, D, E, F, you're having here sub-patterns like A, B, or C, D, or even B, C, D, E, F, or just E, anything you say, anything which can be looked at as local sub-patterns. It is, by the way, possible to even just look at this whole idea in a heuristic way, where you're just looking at partial sub-patterns, where you say, let's say, I'm interested in 1/3 of the patterns, or 10%, or only patterns of a certain length or size. Still, looking at the sub-patterns is going to give you a pretty good idea of how similar two patterns are. And that is what I call a fragmentation set, namely the set of all possible sub-patterns to a pattern. Let's say the pattern is SPQR. Then its fragmentation set consists out of SPQR, that is itself, then SPQ, PQR, SP, PQ, QR, and SPQR. If you look at this set of sub-patterns, that is a unique expression of the above pattern. This is the fragmentation set, and so it can be used for comparisons. Let us say you want to compare SPQR to the patterns of RSPQ and XRPQ. Then you may look at how many sub-patterns each of them has in common with the original pattern when you look at the fragmentation set. And RSPQ has 7 sub-patterns in common. SPQ here, SP over here, PQ, and then SPQR. XRPQ has only 4 sub-patterns in common with the fragmentation set of the original pattern. And hence, I can derive the conclusion that SPQR is more similar to RSPQ than to XRPQ. This is a very abstract idea. It is usable for anything where you can compare patterns. I am mostly using it in chatbots, which, as I have mentioned a few times, are my fruit flies of artificial intelligence. You could use that, of course, for spell checking, image analysis and comparison, etc. Really for anything where you can make out ordered patterns along any sort of dimensions and which you would wish to compare. I'm going to show you actually sample implementations regarding all 3 of the mentioned uses here. So, in particular for the image analysis, you might consider a heuristic approach, where you don't look at the entire fragmentation sets of patterns, but for instance only pixels of a size of 2 times 2 pixels to 5 times 5 pixels, like such sub-areas, where you are, so to say, just looking at a part of a fragmentation set. You might also just use a certain percentage. You are going to trade off some precision, but you are going to gain some speed, and I believe that that is quite worth it, and in my experience it works very well. But fragmentation sets can, even if used partially, lead to very good results. In my following videos you will see the sample implementations, and for the impatient, here I am hailing my own kind, you can see more details on my website on sites.google.com/site/logical triangulation. I wish you much success in your experiments. I hope you're going to have a lot of fun with this, and I'm thanking you kindly for watching. Until next time, goodbye.